Reading started their 2025 home calendar with a loss to high-flying Championship side Burnley FC at the weekend. Despite a 3-1 loss, a leaking roof and mega queues for the SJM stand turnstiles, the game provided more competitive minutes to fringe players and reunited the team with their home fans for the first time this year. Speaking of reunions, Ross and I are back together for the first time this year.
It's been a while, yeah.
It's been, it feels like, what are we, like the 13th? So it's been 2 weeks. It's been a long time.
Yeah. Well, how are you feeling is the most important thing.
I'm all right. What's really, really annoying, so the potted history of where I've been, right, is that I split up from work on like the Thursday before Christmas, was like 19th or 20th or something along those lines. And the minute I turned the engine on, I just felt ill. I just felt really ill when I was like, okay, it's just a virus. Like, everyone has them this time of year, blah, 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 blah. And then over Christmas, just got progressively worse. And then was left with this just ridiculous, like this throat, like it was just throbbing all the time. And then finally went to the doctors, good old NHS, last Monday. And they were like, why do you not come sooner? Like, you've got a pretty serious throat infection. I was like, well, if I'd come any sooner, you would have gone, it's viral, have some strepsils, piss off out of my office, basically. Can't win, can you? So, I've
the fancy strepsils then? Is that what you got?
I just get the honey and lemon ones. I keep it simple.
All right, fair enough.
I don't like taking stuff like that because I just don't. It's like cough medicine. Cough medicine's pointless. It's the most pointless thing going, right?
But it's tasty. I like soothers. Okay, this is interesting.
It's full of sugar as well. They make your teeth go weird and
love it.
Anyway, I've got my voice back. I feel a lot better. It was fully tested on Saturday when Lewis Wing knocked in a pile driver from about 50,000 yards out, which we'll talk about later on. But I feel a lot better than I did. It's just literally just left with this throat that was just like constantly just like bleh.
Well, you're back and you're feeling better. That's important. I'm glad to hear it. Glad to hear your strong voice back with us again.
Yeah, and by all accounts, the last pod it was too strong. You were too quiet. I was too strong. So we'll hopefully the sound will balance out for this one. Hopefully. With the powers that we got for that. Big thanks, as always, to ZZ Films. They are continuing to look after us in more ways than one. They are going to continue to do that for as long as they want to. We obviously massively appreciate what they do, as always, on this episode 403 of the Tilehurst podcast and all the other episodes where Ross was on his own last week with, well, not on his own, that's wrong to say you were on your own, but you remember the starter in SBWD, is that right?
Yeah, I think you're right.
I always get them mixed up, but yeah.
UD40, you can use it to remove Chinese owners and fix your door hinges.
Exactly. Stop squeaks from everywhere. Yeah. So yes, that's what we're doing. But yeah, so episode 403 of your Tilehurst podcast. We've got a big mailbag. We want to talk about Burnley. We want to talk about 3 individual players as well. So we're going to get into that after this short break. Welcome back to the Tilehurst podcast, episode 403. Ross just made me laugh because he's drinking root beer from Wendy's. Is that Wendy's?
Yeah. You can remember everyone. You can watch along on the YouTube podcast if you want to now, which Ryan does a really good job getting those out quickly. So yeah,
he's an unsung hero.
I like to watch podcasts. Like my favorite football podcast is the Tifo football podcast, and they've just put their podcast back on YouTube again, and I'm genuinely so happy. So if you like to watch your podcasts, Ben and I have always got a good shirt on for you to check out. So
I need to up my shirt game. Like I've got my Wales one on from 2020, I think. Gareth Bale.
Yeah.
Anonymous Gareth Bale. But yours, I mean, yours is what? Portland Hearts of Pine.
This is the new Portland Hearts of Pine shirt. Just the long sleeve just came out this week, basically. Okay. But I'm very excited about it. I've been waiting. I actually won this.
It's nice.
It's lovely.
You won it?
Yeah, I won this. We went to an event for them, for their season ticket holders, back at the start of the autumn. So yeah, it was very, very odd. Yeah, and it was presented to, like, the victory was, our name was read out by a local sportscaster who does he helms the show that the Red Sox are on. So it was very, very odd. Yeah, the whole experience. But yeah, it's gonna be great. Portland Hearts of Pine. They start in 2 months' time down in sunny Florida, and they don't play a home game for 2 months because you absolutely cannot play football, outside in May. until May, basically. So yeah,
Okay.
it's gonna be fun. Check him out. Anyway, Reading Football Club.
Yeah, stop talking about American things and let's talk about
Oh
an
yeah,
FA Cup third round loss to um, those Burnley bastards. I hate Burnley. I can't stand Burnley as a
I
club.
don't mind Burnley. I just think they're the
Really
most
hate them.
pointless claret team. Like I've already got West Ham and Aston Villa. Why do I need Burnley too? You know,
Yeah,
like
if you talk about, you'd go West Ham, you'd go Aston Villa, you'd go Scunthorpe,
oh yeah,
and
yeah.
then
Northampton
someone
Town.
else. Yeah, they're kind of burgundy, aren't they? But that's fine. And then I'd probably go a couple of non-league teams that I can't think of off the top of my head, and then I'd
Yeah,
go Burnley.
yeah.
So
Burnley are they're a team that are. It's pretty funny because Moyes has just come back to Everton, and Burnley for me are another one of these teams that I just like associate with one manager, and the rest of it all just being a disaster. I just see them as the Sean Dyche Premier League team,
did you
basically.
just say Dyke? It's Dyche. I can't say Dyche.
Sean Dyche,
On
Sean Dyche.
Dyche, yeah.
Yeah,
Goodness
yeah.
me.
So anyway,
Adlanguage.com. Anyway, I don't know Burnley. It's a really bad place. I know people go on about, Ben doesn't like anywhere. I do. We've been over this in previous pods, but Burnley is an absolute trash pit. It really is. It's one of the worst places I've ever watched football. So I've been to Crawley. So that
yeah.
tells you a lot, really, doesn't it?
Anyway, that's our analysis of Burnley.
That's it. We're done. Look, I think heading into the game, it was going to be difficult to see a world in which we came out on top and got through to the fourth round. Really, I mean, Burnley are doing incredibly well. In the Championship, they look destined for Premier League football next season with Scott Parker, who I also don't like, surprisingly. But I think in spells in the game we kind of weathered what they were doing quite well. Horrendous, like just awful start. We were all over the place. They should have been about 3 or 4-0 up within the first 20 minutes. They hit the post after a reasonably good save from David Button, who's still getting a lot of stick, I have to say, and I don't know if that's particularly warranted, but maybe we'll come on to it later on in the pod. And then we kind of grew into the game. We kind of weathered that a little bit, and the issue really for me in the first half was that we couldn't get control of the ball in those forward areas, and we couldn't really create anything close to worthwhile, really. And we're going to, it's not all on his shoulders, but we're going to talk about Jayden Wareham a little bit later on in the pod. We've got kind of focus on 3 players that I want to talk about. And then second half, we came out, we were very, very positive. We looked like we were the team who was going to score. And then, of course, we weren't. They managed to break the deadlock. There was like 3 or 4 players queuing up to knock the ball past David Button. Really, really bad defending as a unit for them to take the lead. And then Lewis Wing from downtown, sort of 6-7 minutes later, incredible, really. From where I was sat in the Sir John stand, I was kind of almost in line with the Burnley goalkeeper. And every single day of the week, he should be just picking that up.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say,
but it went straight through him. It literally went straight through him, and it was more shock, I think, for people around than anyone really in terms of that actually necessarily.
I don't know how that's happened. I've just watched the replay again. Well, you can actually see it just on the regular YouTube highlights. The angle that's really interesting that they have is from behind, and you can kind of see what must have happened to the goalkeeper there. It almost looks like it caught a gust of wind or something, because Wing hits it.
I think it bounced because it bounced just in front of him.
Yeah. It's curling massively one way, and then it bounces and starts curling the other way. And the keeper just does not reset his body well at all. It was very odd. When I watched it the first time, I was like, how's that? Oh, it's gone. How's it managed to go through the goalkeeper? It's kind of like in FIFA when the engine can't work out how to make 2 players cross each other perfectly. So like an arm goes through someone's head or something.
Yeah,
like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
The ball just clipped through the goalkeeper there.
It was awful for him, and he didn't really recover from that, because once you do that, in a raucous stadium like the SCL, that's it, game over. Do you know what I mean? It's like pick your dinner up and off you go, because he didn't look good after that point. And we managed to get it to extra time. Credit to the players. We couldn't find the winner really. I think Burnley came pretty close towards the end of the game, potentially winning it. And then, of course, substitute Zion Fleming with goals on 100 minutes and 109 minutes kind of put paid to it. And on 109 minutes, Ross, it was a mass exodus because it was bitterly cold up there. Even with a packed out, pretty much sold out SJM stand, it was really, really cold. So, and you couldn't really blame people at that point. Extra time was the last thing anyone wanted, really. Obviously didn't want to ban anyone at that point.
Setup, by the way? Would you have preferred a replay? Would you have preferred to have to go up to Lancashire?
Oh, good God, no. No, absolutely not. My take on the FA Cup in general is that I understand the point about having replays. I think if you look at Tamworth yesterday, for example, that would have been a really good opportunity for them to. Cats just kicked off. That's good. Hold on 2 seconds. And I'll be back with more thoughts. You have to clip this out. Hold on.
Yeah, I got you. Don't worry. I'm not going to clip any of this out. I'm going to leave all of this in. Every last bit of the cat stuff.
I can pretty much guarantee that he's been asleep all day.
Yeah.
And then I started doing this. Like, do you know what I'll do? Anyway, he saw it. What was I saying? So the FA Cups. So for me, I feel like if you're gonna scrap the replays, which obviously we have, I think you just go straight to penalties. I really do.
Like they do in the Car Cup. Right,
because
that's fair.
If you take where we were on Saturday, no one in that stadium wanted extra time. No one.
Yeah,
the players. A lot of our players. I mean, Savage was dead on his feet. Like, he was absolutely exhausted. That you look at other games that have gone to extra time, and teams have really managed to turn the screw because they're fitter and they're better. Burnley ultimately were better than us. Hands down. There's no question that we should have won the game. But I just think in that situation, just go straight to penalties. If you're scrapping replays, and I don't have a huge, feeling for keeping replays. Like, I think it's a bit rich of where this has come from in terms of those bigger clubs saying there's too many games, all the rest of it. But if you're going to get rid of it, just go straight to pens. It's much better in the Carabao Cup now, or whatever it's called, because you just go straight to pens. It's the same with the Bristol Street Motors or whatever the hell it's called today. Just go straight to penalties. Happy days.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I was thinking, like, I enjoyed the Arsenal Man U game yesterday, but I was thinking, like, that whole extra time period felt pointless because both teams, just dial it completely down. They're like, all right, we got to stay fit. We got to make sure no one goes. The most important thing for this extra time period is that no one goes down injured, basically. And so, I'm one of those weirdos that likes penalty shootouts. I think they're kind of fun.
Yeah, they are.
So, like, I enjoyed that, so good to see.
I feel it again. It's a bit contradictory because obviously we managed to put Harper Town away in extra time. But, generally speaking, I think if you take that Tamworth Spurs game yesterday, how exciting would that have been if it had gone straight to pens? Because that really is like in-depth stuff,
Yeah.
Time,
it ratchets up the danger, and for the Premier League side, it would ratchet up them needing to really go for it in the last 10 minutes as well, and then maybe you see spaces left in behind. Interesting. It is interesting, the changes to the FA Cup, but not that it matters for us anymore because we're gone, I suppose.
Exactly, and I think if you look at the fan base in general, there won't be too many people that are gutted we lost. I like the FA Cup. I think the FA Cup is fantastic. I would have preferred to have kept going with that because I think
the FA Cup, but I agree. I want to be gone from it. We don't need more games. One of the main things that I feel this season when we have poor performances is, oh my gosh, doesn't Lewis Wing look tired? Or like you were just saying, oh my gosh, Charlie Savage is out on his legs. Like,
he was dead. He was absolutely unfinished.
And I'm not surprised. Like, they're playing a lot of football right now. So fewer fixtures until the end of the season. That's fine. That's totally fine.
Let's talk about individual players then. Overall, it wasn't a bad effort collectively. I think in spells we were okay. I don't think we ever really looked like we deserved or were going to win the game. But three players that we kind of put out when we were talking about the pod and kind of chatting internally, really. Kelvin Abrefa, Tivonge, Rushesha, and Jayden Wareham were players that I picked out for a number of different reasons. Let's start with Kelvin Abrefa, coming back from injury, kind of getting more minutes. He played a fair chunk of the game on Saturday in what was essentially a free role. he was kind of, all over the place. I don't mean that in a negative sense, but from a position point of view, he was just roaming the pitch like a footballing nomad, basically. What from what you saw of the game, what did you make of his performance in general? And do you think that is something in terms of that position that could, develop into something a bit more positive for him moving forward?
Yeah, he's not the full, young fullback playing as a winger that I necessarily expected to be talking about, because, we talked about wanting to have Garcia that position, and he has moved up a little bit in recent weeks. I certainly wasn't expecting Abrefa to come out of his injury and immediately go in at right wing. I think that's actually caught me off guard a little bit, because, we've had Michael Craig there for pretty much all of the season, and, there have been times when I thought, wow, it'd be nice to get Craig into the midfield and push wing a little bit further forward or something like that. But Craig's done a perfectly fine job. The only thing that he hasn't necessarily been doing is playing as a traditional right back. And I would think Abrefa allows us, to play a traditional right back finally this season. But as always seems to be the way with this Reading team, we're playing players in maybe not their natural position. I think that, to be honest, Abrefa so far has sort of suffered from the same thing that pretty much everyone who isn't called Chem Campbell has suffered from, playing in a wide forward position for Reading this season, which is struggling to retain the ball for any real length of time. And I don't know if that's built into the tactics, whereby they have, they've been told to go direct, and that leads to risky passes and losing the ball. But, I haven't seen necessarily Abrefa standing out in that position versus anyone else, in my opinion, as of right.
Well, anyway you look, he was listed as playing, as you said, right wing, effectively in a front three.
Yeah.
On the left-hand side, on paper, was Jayden Wareham, who did not impress, I have to say. What, is it fair to say he didn't impress? Yeah, I guess it's all opinion-based, and I don't think he was particularly good on Saturday.
Sure.
And I guess really kind of forcing the issue here and putting you on the spot. Do you feel that he is running out of chances to impress?
I think that it's really interesting comparing him to like Jamari Clark and how many chances Jamari Clark got to impress, given that Jamari Clark scored, in the championship before not really getting a look in for the rest of his time. Yeah, I think that if we weren't in the position that we're currently in, then Wareham might not have been given as many chances as he has been given. And I do think he's been given a decent amount of chances. I don't necessarily think that's going to stop necessarily anytime soon, because I think that the Noel likes Jayden, by the way. Like, I think that Noel sees a little bit of himself in Jayden in the way that they used to play, and I think that, Jayden would probably like to be scoring more, and we'd all like for him to be scoring more. There have been some chances that he's missed this year, but I think that Noel looks at him and he sees a scrappy, player who can be a pain in the neck. The issue with Wareham at the moment for me is that his kind of technical play with his feet isn't quite at the level that we need it to be at. And again, I will talk about this a bit more, but you can chuck in a large amount of people who just up front aren't able to hold on to the ball for particularly long. It's been an issue for Reading now for quite a while within the 4-3-3 structure. But yeah, I do think it would be fair to say that if, we had funding and things like that over the last few years, Wareham would at least be somebody that we'd be looking to get out, to a lower down club on loan to get some time and get some confidence, rather than, being tried with us.
I mean, he's made 24 appearances so far this season across all 4 competitions. He scored 3 goals. And he's
better record, by the way, than Danny Loader, who we all thought was the next coming for a little bit. So yeah, interesting.
And he's played 949 minutes.
Yeah.
So what's that? 300 and something every goal.
Yeah.
Is that good enough?
No, I think so. In terms of goal scoring, we've definitely seen some times this season where Wareham has had chances to put a game away and not taking it. Harbour Town is a good example of one of those. And I think that his best period of the season came shortly after that Exeter goal, when he got the surprise start that day. And he does do a lot of work when he's out there. He does put in a lot of effort, but I do, again, just worry that the technical skills just aren't quite where they need to be for him. And yeah, I do think that if we were in a better situation alone at some point to maybe, a National League team or something like that would have been the way to go with Wareham.
I mean, obviously we can sit and go, yeah, we need this player, this player, this player. We just have Sam Smith and Jayden Wareham as recognised strikers in inverted commas.
Off the injury, but I would say Kelvin also goes onto that list, but he's obviously injured right now.
But at the moment, it's those two. If you were given, it sounds ridiculous, but if you were given money and a transfer budget, would you be seriously looking at a forward player or a striker as one of the
100%
first options through the door in terms of position?
Yeah, I'd still be going for the same thing that I've wanted forever, which is a left winger.
Yeah,
number one, and I think
you go left winger. Would you go striker afterwards?
Yeah, probably now. Yeah, because if we're keeping Chem for the rest of the season, if we're talking about hypothetical idea.
Welcome back, Chem. By the way, welcome back. So welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back, Chem. I am very excited about that. That's great news. Yeah, so what we talk about, sorry, now is welcoming Chem back. Would I buy a striker? Yes, I would buy a striker. Let me tell you why I would buy a striker. I'm getting jealous watching all of these League One teams that have mobile target men. And it's something that it's taken a little bit of time for the lower leagues to take the tactics of the elite leagues or whatever and mold them with the DNA, the blood of the lower leagues, which is the target man, obviously, the little and large strike partnership. But I've been quite jealous. I liked Blackpool's big number 9 for sure, of some of the teams that have shown up this season. And they've played like a 3-5-2 or something like that. And they have had the ability when they're getting pressed to just chuck the ball out of their defense and just have the number 9 take it down and play it on. And Sam Smith I think his movement is fantastic. Like the way in which he moves from in the channels and like moves from seam to seam means that he, as a smaller striker, can still get a lot. Like it's like watching What If Sam Baldock was good, watching Sam Smith. But
depends who you ask though. I don't know where he sits in Reading folklore these days, Sam.
Well, yeah. But anyway, I would very much like to have some sort of like player like that Bindon and Benge, Holzman does it sometimes, wing, like these players can just chuck the ball up to and have it more likely that they will actually get the ball down and move on to the next play. So one other quick thing about not Blackpool, let me say that again. Thank you. One other quick thing about Burnley, by the way, another starring role for Harley Dean, and that is quite a comeback that's going on right now. And I would say laid off the best chance for Reading of the entire game too, is in the box. And we'll offer for Sam Smith, I think, after a free kick. So yeah, just another pretty reasonable performance from Harley.
Well, I mean, another player that I thought was all right was Rushesha, a right back. I thought he was okay. But at least 6 people on social media have told me that I'm an idiot, and that's wrong. And that he was terrible.
Is this anything to do with Rushesha, or is this just in general?
You don't know. I mean, I've been away for a while, so maybe people have just got some pent-up stuff they want to get off. I don't know. But
yeah, right.
I thought he was okay. Like, he went forward well. He defended okay. But, some people said, his passing was abysmal for a midfielder. He needs to bulk up. Blah, 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 blah. Like, position was all wrong, all this kind of stuff. What did you feel? I mean, he played 107 minutes, to be fair. And he's been out in the cold a little bit, really, in terms of first team action. What did you feel about him as an overall performance? I think Sim gave him a 6, potentially. I think he gave him a 6 in the ratings, which is fine. It's not horrendous. Yeah, where are you at with Rushesha at the moment?
I noticed that Burnley, I'll put it this way. Burnley spent, 20 minutes working Reading out and really like shelling us with attacks. And then they seemed to conclude that going down Kanu's side was the better option, which tells you what you need to know really about the Rushesha performance. I mean, I think that there are definitely, things that he could improve on with his positioning. But I mean, if you want to talk about positioning, over and over again, I saw the ball getting played in behind the left back and the winger being able to get into that seam and get on the ball. So if Reading have issues, if Reading had issues at fullback, for me, they were at left back against Burnley. So,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, by the way, like I think that Reading's fullbacks are another one of their biggest issues right now. The extremities of the team are issues for different reasons, either tactically or personnel reasons.
I mean, the number 30 for Burnley was having an absolute field. Certainly in the first half, he was having a field day with Carney. Like, he was just like, I mean, again, I like Carney.
Yeah,
I don't
me
have
too.
any English, but he was not good. And I stupidly, moving away from the ground, I turned on the radio.
Yeah.
And a local radio station, which I won't name by name, was saying, Carney's had a really good game. He's surely in for man of the match shout. And I was like, did you watch the game? Like, did we see the same process occurring in that game? Again, nothing against Carney. He was nowhere near man of the match material for me.
I feel for him. Spent like he had his like the first half of this year, and then the last few weeks when Carney's been playing a bunch, like he's had his sort of like, I'll call it his Tyler Binden Blackpool moment, where he's been like, oh gosh, like he's been hit in the face by like how competitive and tough and how much you have to concentrate in like professional football and all these kinds of things. And he's kind of got that down. He's got the toughness down of like being in League One over the last few weeks. And then you get hit with the jinkiest, fastest like winger. It's like, all right, good luck. Like, this is probably something more similar than to what you would have been seeing at U21 level, just in terms of people running at him rather than running into him.
I mean, I've no idea. I'd never heard of the number 30 for Burnley before, but he was on fire, certainly in the first half. He just had so much the ball, and it was all going down, that left-hand side, really. So, tricky.
Speaking of wingers, let me bang on a little bit then. So I'm excited.
What are you calling this? What's this segment?
I don't know. My winger is tier list, and I don't even know if
terrible.
It's a tier list.
Wingers. Yeah, don't say that the wrong way around.
Well, it's kind of a tier list, but it's almost like just random thoughts on wingers, I suppose. But I'm happy Chem Campbell's back. That's really good news, right?
But we weren't saying that when he joined the first 3 or 4 games, were we? We weren't saying that.
I was, but like you can literally go back and see the video where I was just saying, no, he's good, don't worry about it. So anyway, you can also see the video where I was saying we'll finish 5th as well.
Listen, we got a preview against Stockport to come. We're still sick. It's a big game. It's a big ticket game on Saturday. Anyway, I digress. Carry on.
Yeah, Chem's back. And that's great news, because for me, Chem has been just about the only reliable, consistent winger option now for Reading.
Recently,
I would say for the last 2 months, and that's like pretty good. No, I'd say at least 2 months, and that's important because Reading have had issues there. I think that one of the real issues, we kind of touched on it with Burnley, is that Reading can't really retain the ball in their forward line very well at all. Sam Smith can do it a little bit.
Forget very well, just at all.
They just can't do it. Yeah, like there are many times whereby the ball, we do have these games, right, where the ball just gets thrown forward over and over and we just don't get close to controlling it and bring it down. This is why I'd like a big target man, just someone who can take the ball down and
that's what we needed.
What?
Kiefer Moore.
Kiefer Moore, yeah, we need a Kiefer Moore. We need a Kiefer Moore.
Lovely player.
Whoever we try, in these wide positions, we just do not seem to be able to find anyone outside of Chem who can maintain possession. So I'm looking through my tier list here. If I want to put in like genuinely just good, solid, Chem, that's it. Like that's the top list, top tier, good. I've got 1 in there, and it's Chem Campbell. All right. And then the rest of my tiers are like on his day, pretty good, right? So in that tier, I've got Kelvin, okay, and then that's probably it. Kelvin's probably the only one on his day, pretty good, right? Then Kelvin. Under that, I've got Shore, is what I'm going to call this tier, which is probably like Akande, Kamara, and maybe Garcia. No. The tier is just called like meh. It's like, okay, like if I see these names announced in the team sheet, I'm not excited. I'm not upset. I'm just like, okay, like, sure. Yeah, okay. I look forward to marking them 5 out of 10 later on today. And then underneath that, you just don't know. And kind of Wareham and Osho and Tuma and all those kinds of players. So really, when I was thinking about that, though, I was just like, if we hadn't kept Chem, I don't know if Reading were ever going to retain a ball that had been kicked out of defense ever again. And quite frankly, just because for whatever reason, whether it's through positioning, knowing what the triggers are, or anything like that, the rest of our wingers really, really struggle to retain possession at all. And it's happened even in the kind of like the cup games and like the games where like lots of academy players have played. I remember the game against Walsall, but Reading just could not hold on to the ball whatsoever. None of the forward players could do it. So yeah, I think it's a sort of brewing issue alongside the kind of the aerial duel numbers for the fullbacks this season is the issues with retaining possession, especially for wide forwards. But yeah, Chem's the only one of Reading's wingers that goes into my good tier, basically.
I mean, that's a pretty when you break. I mean, it's probably one of the worst tiers I've ever heard. Do you know what I mean? When we're talking tiers, we're talking about, for me, it's always about cakes.
Okay. Yeah.
Been to weddings where they've had like different flavored cakes, and I'm like, yeah, this is a tier, right? This is good. When you look at it like that's a pretty miserable list, isn't it, in terms of numbers?
It's what happens, I think. Well, I mean, this is what happens when you haven't been able to sign a player for 4.5 years for money, isn't it? Like recruitment, because, like recruitment is what kills like the big teams. Like they go through periods whereby they're having a bad time, partially because they've wasted so much money and it hasn't worked out.
Hello, Manchester United. How are you?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, hello, Manchester City in the last 2 years, wasted a lot of money. And when you have issues with money like that, there are going to be holes in your team, and unfortunately, there are holes in our team. It is still remarkable how the position they're in. So anyway, wanted to talk about the wingers a little bit, and no, Wareham wasn't great there this weekend, but I don't think anyone's been particularly good there this whole season outside of Chem. So yeah,
I've always said this: you are only as good as your weakest player.
Wow. Yeah, there you go.
Priority should always be not signing the marquee players. It should be bringing up the players that are weaker and replacing those with better players. Sounds obvious.
This is called floor raising in American sports. I'm not sure if it is everywhere, but yeah, we talk about floor raising and ceiling raising players. And so it's a player like Femi Aziz, you can put that last little bit of frosting, icing on top of the, the structure. That's your
lemon drizzle.
Ceiling. Your lemon drizzle. He's your ceiling raiser, your lemon drizzle. But your floor raisers are players like, Savage doing the running or Elliot doing like the little part. These are your guys that, just make sure that the sponge of your victory sponge is consistent.
Yeah, anyway. I mean, do you know what? I'd love to. Maybe we won't do this as a pod. I don't think it's positive for anybody, but I would love off air to maybe rank our players like you've done with the tier. But like, if you look at the starting 11, who's the weakest player in that team? Who's a player that's top of that list in terms of the best, and then rank them to the weakest. I think that'd be really interesting to see if we came up with the same thing. Yeah. Maybe we'll talk about it off air. I don't know. Maybe that would be something we can do. We're going to finish because it was really cold, and I don't want to be that person. It's freezing because it's winter, and that's what you should expect. But I stand by the fact that the SCL is the coldest stadium I've ever been to. And I don't know why. Maybe because it's sparsely populated most of the time, but it is bitterly cold up there. Forget sporting events. Yeah. If you're going for hot drinks, what is your tier hot drink? So you can have 3.
Okay.
I have to ask because we put it out on the tweet.
I mean, well, the hot drinks, number 1 is coffee, easy. Although I don't.
Yeah, what do you mean by that though?
Well, just a black coffee. It's good stuff. Yeah. But like I would say in New England, we drink our coffee iced normally. But so I'm having to break the rules a little bit here. But anyway, coffee, I like green tea.
Hold on, if it's iced, it's not hot, so that can't.
No, but I'm saying like I like hot coffee as well.
Oh right, okay.
You've given me more hot drinks than I drink here. Number 1 is coffee. Number 2 is I would say number 1 is black coffee. Number 2 is white coffee, and number 3 is espresso. It's kind of where I don't really like hot drinks other than coffee.
Did you read my column this week? I bet you didn't. Some guy walked past me with a coffee cup. Well, I mean, it said coffee on it. It was like Kenko, whatever they said.
Yeah.
But he was clutching like 8 milk sachets. What's the point? You might as well have a tea. Do you know what I mean? What point? I think Wim said on the article. What point does it stop? What point does it is it stop coffee or being coffee and become tea.
Is it not a latte, though? Have you put enough milk in it? Call it a latte.
The coffee at the stadium is really bad. Like, it's really
bad.
It's really, really awful.
Yeah. Has anyone ever had a good cup of coffee at a football ground, though? That's the question for next week.
When we were run properly, when we had like Blue Collar Food Anonymous Coffee, who were based in Reading, they had a little tent outside the Dolan, the North Stand. Okay. Honestly, it was amazing at half time. So I used to nip out 2 minutes before the whistle went, grab the coffees, be back in the seat for the non-existent halftime entertainment before I started doing it. And that was it, job done. But now, no, they don't. It's just trash, absolute toilet water.
That's going to be the best announcement on this ever when the halftime stuff is back. That's really going to be the biggest announcement. Tier list, number one, halftime back.
Yeah.
I'm just going coffee. I don't really like hot drinks other than coffee. I know that's rubbish.
Green tea.
I don't know. More coffee.
Double coffee.
Oh, there's this thing, I like hot toddy style drinks, like the hot cocktails. Those are pretty good.
Okay. I'd probably go, for ease, I'd go black coffee, cappuccino, peppermint.
Peppermint tea? Okay. All right. I was wondering I like green tea, so I guess, that's not too bad. Peppermint tea's pretty good. I'll give you that one.
Green tea's really bad for your teeth. It stains your teeth really badly.
Everything stains something, man. Like you just got to keep pushing forward. Just don't worry about what the doctor says.
Well, that's true. All right. Well, there you go. We've done that. Move on. Tick that box. Let's have a little look at the mailbag then, shall we? There's a few little bits and pieces in there that we can talk about. So we're going to take a short break, and we will be back with a sort of semi-bulging mailbag. So see you in a bit. Welcome back to episode 403. I'll just check in that was the right number of the Tilehurst podcast. Ross, you were on your own last week. For those people that haven't listened to it, so episode 402 still available wherever you get your back copies of podcasts from. Ross talked to Adam Jones and Greg Double of Star and SBW respectively. I had to work it out in my head if that was the right initialism of the group.
Yep.
What leaving that pod, what was your overall sense of feeling from talking to the gents about where we are off?
I thought it was a good chat because I am definitely someone who doesn't really love talking about off the pitch stuff anyway. And so especially since Cohig's deal had fallen through, at the start of the autumn, I'd really kind of tuned out for a little while. So I thought it was a really interesting chat. And there was a lot more optimism coming from that side of the fence than I expected, which was good as well. There wasn't, nearly as much, pessimism and doom and gloom as there could be for a team that's being, sued by a man who thought he could have made more money on it than the team's worth or whatever. So, I actually came out of it really positive, and I do think it's a good chat. So yeah, if you haven't listened to that from last week, go check it out because it was an interesting conversation. Honestly, just kind of like summarizing the year that wasn't, 2020. I think that Sim is getting bored of writing year-end reviews now that are like, oh, well, this year should have been good for Reading, but it wasn't again because, the same things that we've been dealing with for 10 years. So, it was an interesting chat and still a sense of hopelessness, certainly, about all of it, but there was optimism coming from it. And so, I think it's worth checking out.
I think it's hard to work out where the fan base is generally at the moment in terms of the boardroom level stuff because it almost seems like weekly there's a new story or a new bit of information that comes out. I mean, obviously, Paul Taylor has been linked and his group have been linked for a little while now with kind of being interested in the club, but nothing seems to have been concretely sorted there. Roger Smee is still hanging around. It's hard to know really, say, where we're at, but what the kind of the move forward is. I think the positive is that there are people still interested in the club. And, from what I can gather, it doesn't seem like players have to be sold. However, when you look at, your mate Bindon and Pereira and a couple of others that are out of contract, you have to work out from a business sense, do we just keep them for the next 4 or 5 months, whatever it is, longer than that, 6 months, and let them go for a free, or do we try and cash in on them now? It's difficult to know. And with, I saw a really interesting, I can't remember who did it, but it was a really interesting point about Dye not wanting to sell while we've got a chance of being promoted, because we're still in the mix. Technically, might be even more in the mix come Saturday this week against Stockport if we get the right result. So there are lots of different thoughts, really.
Sorry, just real quick, I'll go right back to you in a sec, but I do think it's worth saying, like, this is something Reading have been bad at in the last decade, and especially under Dye's ownership, is selling players on when it's time for them to go. Unless you are Real Madrid or like Barcelona or whatever, you do have to sell occasionally. Like Liverpool have had to sell big players, Man U have had to sell big players. Like, it happens, and Reading have held on to some players for far too long and let them either leave, and run out their contracts, or just never really got good value for them. Like, for instance, Harvey Nibbs at the moment. Look, I would hate to lose Harvey Nibbs, but if they can get some decent value for a player who has come and improved at Reading, then it's tough to say that they shouldn't be in the habit of doing that.
I think as well with possible departures, it might not be their choice. It might not be the player's choice. The club might go, right, we've been offered 850 grand. See you later. Like, no questions, you're out the door. It might not be their choice. You don't know. I'm not going to be one of those people that subscribe to, wow, they should all be destroyed humanely if they leave the club. I just won't ever talk about them or acknowledge their existence ever again. Like
you to say humanely.
That I don't know about. So,
right. It's nice of you to say humanely. Just they should be destroyed compassionately.
But you know what I mean? People get like really like, oh my God, they're traitors. But it's just a game. It's just it's just a game. And with us at the moment, I do wonder how much choice they will have. I think it's, what are we now, the 13th? So sort of coming up to halfway through and no one's left yet. And I think if there was going to be this supposed fire sale, someone would have gone by now. If they were that absolutely close to the bone with money, which, we know it's not flowing out of the taps like water at the moment. But if they were like, everyone's got to go, someone would have gone by now.
So yes, and so here's my baseless speculation of the week, right? We've seen, here we go. So we've seen a couple of the players talking about, they know where they are in the table, is the long and short of this. The players are aware that they're in the playoff zone right now.
You'd like to think they are.
You would like to think they're aware, but you know what football people like, you say like, oh, well, what you think about being fifth? They go, oh, never look at the table. Shut up. Yes, you do.
Yeah, you do.
Nonsense. Complete nonsense. But anyway, I think that there is some sense of feeling in the group that like, hey, we could do something here. Like, this is a pretty good group of players. Like, we could maybe kick on and make the playoffs here. And if that's broken out into the public, like once or twice from one of them, these players all have like WhatsApp groups and things like that together, right? They're all talking all the time. That's a team environment. Then it's definitely broken out into that, personal, private environment too. So I think the players are talking about it. And so there is, I think, some internal peer pressure from the players like, hey, stick around. Like, we could do something here. We could get ourselves promoted, which would be an incredible story.
It's so difficult to judge, isn't it? And it would be amazing if we had someone fairly competent running this, in terms of the club. But like, it's so difficult to know whether you stick or twist with these players, because you're right, they could stay together and we might not get promoted, and then those players leave on a free because they'll be like, well, I'm not doing another year in League One and I've done my time, and fine, fair enough. But at the same time, if someone comes in with some good money this month and you go, well, hate to say it, but Tyler Binden, if someone goes, here's 2 million, there's absolutely no way that he's staying at Reading Football Club, because 2 million is 2 million.
And he should go, like we're saying. If they're offered that kind of money, unfortunately, he should go. It is what it is. Yeah.
Difficult.
For sure.
I'm conscious that this is the mouth, and we're not even.
Yeah, no, it did occur to me we haven't answered a single thing. Last thing on that, did you hear when Greg last week referred to him as Franz Bindenbauer? I thought that was quite good. Yeah, I liked that.
What he said. That's quite funny, actually.
I thought it was quite good. Yeah.
Like
so I'll be using that. So anyway.
He has been exceptional. He has been really exceptional.
He's a wonderful, wonderful player.
Right. I'm really sorry to this person. This was posted on Boxing Day, and I said, yeah, we'll do it. And then we just didn't do it. But that's why we started with this question. So SP37 says, it would be interesting to hear comparison of playing style under Hunt this far versus Sellers. Don't know who that is. What aspects has Hunt kept and what has been changed? Briefly, Ross. My dissertation.
That's not really a thing I can do briefly.
Is it better?
Is it better? It's different. It's a little bit different. There's more willingness to... God, I wish I had a better answer for you right now, to be honest. It's kind of something I want to think about and maybe do a video on, because I think it is an interesting subject. I think that there are some differences.
Do that then. Do a video.
Yeah, I'm kind of waffling, so I kind of want to, I'll do a video
that'll
on
be
that
that's your next video then. How about that?
Yeah, there you go. We'll do differences on Sellers versus no Hunt. I think I talked about a little bit. There's the distances between the players were tighter under Sellers, which for me, especially when they went wide, allowed for just like a faster pace of being able to progress the ball down the field. But I think that personnel issues, or not issues necessarily, but like personnel differences since Sellers left have actually forced some changes into Hunt's lineup. So there have been like more traditional use. I think the right backs have been a bit more traditional. Like even when Craig was playing, he was kind of like staying a bit wider rather than coming inside. It was certainly something I noticed. And at certain points, I noticed Nibs even coming pretty deep too. So it went almost from like a 3-2 build up to a 4-2 build up. So there are certainly some changes there, but I don't want to tell you anything that isn't, fully accurate. So I'll have to go and do some research there. Don't lie. Exactly.
I can't explain it, but we look a lot more functional and we look at, a little bit more solid as a result of that. James has asked, would love your take on the tactics adjustment from Sellers to Noel. Now he's had a few games. I'm personally positive with Noel, especially away from home. And then he says, appreciate this may be a tactics pod and not part of the main pod. That's literally ones of people who are clamouring for a tactics pod about this. And if you don't make it happen, you're going to be letting a lot of people down.
It has been a little while. And thanks to our wonderful friends at ZCZ Films, Y Scout is in the tank for another year. So, yeah, we got to get the motor running there and get you guys some more stuff.
That's your next pod?
There we go.
Tactics video, whatever.
He's trying to get off the pod again, everyone. He's like, there you go. That's your next pod. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
I'll do it. You just need someone else with you and I'll compare it or whatever.
Right. That's fair. That's actually a good
start
point.
Thinking about how I can compare Lewis Wing to a woodland creature or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair.
Badger. That's, Jamie Wykes, do you think we'll have another period this season where all our key players will be fit? I feel it's only a matter of time until Wing/Smith break down. That's really made me laugh. I love the idea of them breaking down.
Let's come back in. That's come into the football lexicon more in the last few years. I really like that phrase.
Break
down.
I
saw it used this weekend. Where they were talking about Saka. It's like, well, at least there was no way we could have known that a player who's played hundreds of games since he was 16 would ever break down. Yeah, like there was no way we could have known this was coming.
Possibly because there's no way we could have predicted it.
No,
that's tickled me, Jamie. I like that breakdown. As everyone seems to be getting injured, even Joel Pereira has. Plus, the length of injuries seem to be longer this season. It's a good point. Like last season, we weren't really that fussed with injuries, were we? We got through all right.
But I think we mentioned that we got exceptionally lucky last season. I think we were very lucky last year with injuries for sure. Like there were points when injuries to certain players could have really put us into a bit of a hole. You're right. Like this year, we've had a lot more injuries. And I think that's part of what's causing, like I was just saying, personnel. I think that some of these personnel like issues / changes under Noel have been what have forced him to kind of like show his hand and show who he is as a manager and actually like reminded him of like what he feels confident in as a coach, which has been good for him. And so, yeah, you're right. We have had a lot more injuries. And I suppose that's a good way of putting it. Under Noel, I actually feel a little bit more confident in the manager adapting to those injuries and finding, the right places for the substitutions to play.
I mean, we have got quite a lengthy list now. Probably the longest I can remember for a period of time. There's quite a few players out, and there's a possibility that there was a couple of players that picked up knocks on Saturday as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how quickly those players can come back when we're currently in that mindset or that routine of Saturday to Saturday. And that carries on, I think, for another 2 or 3 weeks, potentially.
Yeah. I think
seems like we're going Saturday, which is really good in terms of bringing players back.
I mean,
So,
just in terms of straight up wear and tear, I mean, last year was the first year that most of these players had to play almost every single game. And this year is the second year of them having to play almost every single game. So just in terms of, wear and tear and going back to the same mill or whatever, like, I'm not surprised that these players are getting tired at this point.
And I don't know where I said it. It might have been a dream. Who knows these days? You never really know. But like, I had the thought, and I don't know if I wrote it down, said it to someone, whatever, I don't know, about Saturday in terms of the fact that we were playing mostly first teamers with a couple of fringe players mixed in. In previous years, you would really see a high intensity to those cup games, or most of those cup games, because the fringe players really wanted to impress. I'm not saying that there wasn't any effort on Saturday, because there was. But there was just that little bit more lack of drive in some of those players where they're like, actually, Jay, what, I'm not, I'm not by any stretch saying it was a testimonial or anything like that. But there was just a little element. There's a little element of like, actually, Jay, what, I played so many games here. This is another game I got to stick my neck on the line for. I don't want to get injured in a cup game against, bloody Burnley or whatever.
Well, I think, Go ahead, sorry.
No, go on. No, you're right.
I was just say, I think Burnley's was a really tough draw because they're well and truly in the way better than us category, 100%. But they're also in the who bloody cares category. So yeah, for like a lot of these players, like, Wing was one of like our biggest players. Our best and biggest player, like playing in that particular game. Wing doesn't care about Burnley. He used to play for Middlesbrough, like whatever. He used to play them like week in, week out. Like, what does he care about? Like, so it's not a big game for any of the players for them to get up for, I thought it was a tricky draw. If we had gotten like another, League Two or non-league team, then we could have put out like a more changed side and, kind of seen that energy. And if it had been a really, really good team, then okay, fine, you put out your strongest team, but you're pretty motivated to go for it, like we were at Man U a couple years ago where Mbengue scored. So yeah, I just think the draw was...
I know that.
It really does. Andy Carroll injured Christian Eriksen in that
game.
That
he's never recovered from that, has he?
Neither of my Man U fan friends that think that that's the biggest and worst thing that's ever happened in football. Anyway, moving on.
Tom Sheeran 87, actually. Not fussed with the Burnley result. I actually think the lads played pretty well against a very strong team. I want Wareham to do well, but I just don't think he can cut it at this level. With a favourable run in, how do you think we will finish the season? And then he says, love the pod, chaps. Thanks. Appreciate it. Like Friends. That. I love it when people are nice. They don't have to say that, do they? So it's nice to have that feedback.
We were talking about when people were nice, though, in the group chat this week, and whether it's okay to be nice to us in the toilets, which, no. This is the conclusion we came to. So, but in general, yes, we like it when you're nice. We appreciate all of you guys. Yeah, for sure.
We've sort of done Wareham, haven't we? We've covered him. Do you think he can cut out?
Look, okay, let me real quick. That goal he scores against Exeter is like textbook. It's really, really good. It's what you want your striker doing. Like he holds off a bigger man, he turns him, and then he slots it low and hard. If he can do that 5 to 10 times a season, then he will have a 15-year career, in League Two. But like, is he good enough for us right now? I think we said, like he's probably getting more time than he would because of the situation that we're in. I would also like for him to do well, but his finishing hasn't been going in the right direction over the last few months, unfortunately.
With a what's the matter with me? With a favourable run in, how do you think we'll finish the season?
All right, I'm going to keep being stupid now. I think we're making the playoffs. I think this team is really good. I think there's something going on. I'm starting to think this team gets promoted. They're so dumb. I love it. Anyway, here we go. So I predicted them to finish 5th and go up in the playoffs this season, right?
Is that what you said?
Yeah, that was my prediction at the start of the year. And I wasn't the only Tilehurst end writer who had them in the playoffs.
What did I say? 12.
I don't know, 12th or 15th, something boring. And so I
was vintage from sitting on the fence.
Yeah, exactly. I'm starting to believe a little bit, and it comes down to the quality in the team. And I think that if we lose more than like more than one key player over January, then cancel this. It's going nowhere. But if we finish January with Bindon, Smith, Nibs, and Wing, I think we finished in the playoffs.
Wing won't be leaving. Wing's not leaving. No chance.
Probably not. No. I think his family's pretty settled.
Also, where's he? He's not going to go Championship, with all due respect to him.
Yeah, it's
he
tough.
Struggles to get around a pitch as it is. Like, good player, obviously. You'd always want him in our team, but I don't think he's going. I think you've got to be more careful of someone like Savage potentially going. I mean, Elliott would have been first on the list because of the way that he's been playing and the versatility that he shows, but he's injured and no one's picking him up this January. So for me, it's Bindon, Nibbs and Smith are the ones, really.
Well, yeah, no, that's fair. But let's say just in terms of quality and importance to the team's sake, like by the end of the year, we still have Pereira, Bindon, Wing, Smith and Nibbs. I think this team makes the playoffs because I do think that there are things that they can improve on, as well as things that, they may regress to the mean a little bit on some other things. I do think that they are. So on the one hand, I think their defense has been a little bit weaker, but the listener earlier was saying that he thinks the defense has got a little bit stronger under Noel, and I do think that he has been more willing to adapt to circumstance than Sellers was. Sellers very, idiomatic. I'm not sure if that's the word, but he would always stick to his idea rather than adapting to the circumstances necessarily. I just think that, Chem Campbell's sticking around. We just have enough quality to beat half of the teams in this division in a tight game, and we continue to win home games and draw our away games. And if you do that, eventually you find yourself in a great position at the end of the year. So
if you don't lose, you might get.
If you don't lose, you win. That's my big takeaway from today.
I mean, look, just the problem for me is that every time I look at the table, I start to dream a little bit more, and every week we are in that position. I dream a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. What I don't want to do is keep thinking that way and then be absolutely on the floor come May when we're not in the playoffs or whatever.
Why not? That's the fun of football.
That's just degrading and exhausting, and I just want us to be good for once.
I'm going to degrade yourself on your podcast with me and say that Reading Football Club are going to get promoted in the playoffs.
Yeah, but look, I mean, the facts are, on the 13th of January, we're 6th in the table. We've played 24 games. We've won half of those. Drawn 5. We've lost 7. I mean, that's not bad, is it? Not really. Goal difference of +6, and we're on 41 points. To put that into context, Stockport have played 25 games, so one more than us. They've won 10. They've drawn 8. They've lost 7. Goal difference of 10. And they're on 38 points. And then directly above us is Barnsley. Again, played one more game on 25. They've won 12, drawn 6, lost 7, goal difference of 6, and they're on 42 points. Really, Saturday is a massive game because we win that, then we are, I can't do the maths, we got 44 points, they're on 38, so we're 6 points clear of them. With a game in hand.
Yeah, and the gap is
finally... That's we win on Saturday, I might start to go, do you know what? And I think, and like you said about keeping the group together, I think we get a result on Saturday. I think that group really starts to believe. I really do.
Yeah.
Because Leyton Orient, who are on the same games as we are, they're on 37, Mansfield 37, Bolton, who are in implosion mode at the moment in terms of their manager. If you look at the interview that after their game on Saturday, they're on 37, and their massive gap down to 11th with Charlton on 34. So that really is Saturday's a huge game. It's a massive, massive game in the context of this football club on the pitch, and I can't wait for that. I really can't.
Isn't it fun to be involved in those?
I mean,
isn't it fun to be involved in in important competitive football matches?
Yeah,
it's exciting.
And anything can happen there, really. Before we do that, Tom Hill was chipped in with, I've lost it now. Where has he gone? How did you each celebrate coming into 2025? I feel like he's written that like we were born. How did you come into 2025?
Right.
And then he says, is an ill-fated hangover from New Year's Eve the reason that us thirsty listeners' ears have not been quenched with the podcast from both of you yet this year? You should do some writing, mate. That's pretty good.
Right. Not bad. Yeah, you should quench. Very quenchy.
Yeah. And what did you do for New
I
Year's
played
Eve?
football. I think I talked about this on the pod. I played football on New Year's Eve. It was a lot of
What,
fun.
up until midnight?
No, it was up until like 9, and then I went to bed. I was
Straight
sleepy.
up? Yeah.
No, this nonsense. I went and played football, and then went and had some beers and a burger, obviously, and then I went home. I didn't make it to midnight out. I'm an old man. Whatever. There's things going on. Yeah.
We went to our neighbours briefly, and then I was feeling pretty ill at that point, so I went to bed. But blooming round here, it was like a war zone. The amount of fireworks that were going off, I was like, what's going on? Honestly, it was mental. The amount of money that people spend on fireworks around here as well was just crazy.
You've got a horrible surprise coming about war zones if you think it's just fireworks in those.
I know. I'll be last on the front lines, I tell you. Put it that way.
Yeah.
And then is an ill-fated hangover. No, like honestly, with me being quite ill, don't know if I've mentioned that. I didn't really drink at all over the festive period. Didn't really eat anything. Just couldn't do it.
There you go. If anyone else is on, if any other Tilehurst end listeners are on a dry January like myself, feel free to.
No, you're not. You're not. Are you really?
Feel free to send in your commiserations and your non-alcoholic recommendations that you enjoy. Feel free to. Let's get that going. The dry January.
Why are you doing that? Why are you doing dry January?
Just it's a good little thing just to do. I'm not going to start talking about my drinking habits on the podcast, but. It's a good thing
it's
to
confession time with Ross. That's what it
right?
is.
Like, anyway, yeah. Got any beers you want to share with us?
Drinks so much, his throat clinks like a glass-throated child.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
What are we doing now? We're doing a preview, aren't we? Let's do a preview.
Yeah. Let's do a preview.
Right, little break, and then final stretch of episode 403. Because I feel like my voice is about to give up. So let's get that done, and we'll be back.
Nice. No more.
Welcome back. He does it all the time.
Every time.
Such a thinker, such a rapscallion.
Yeah.
He's just carried on. Ross has just carried on from what we were talking about in the last part of Mailbag about his drinking habits, which was quite amusing. It tickled me. Right, we're going to go to a Stockport preview. Do you know what? Obviously, we talked about it in the mailbag. They're having a pretty good season. I think a few people predicted them to be dark horses for this season in terms of competing at the higher end of the league, having come up from League Two last season. They've surprised a few people, as we said earlier. That they won 10 games out of 25, only lost 7, and they're currently in 7th place on 38 points. Pretty good season for them, Ross.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that it's the biggest game of our season today on Saturday?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Just because of like how we were talking in the previous section, if Reading do go and win this one, then there's going to be a little bit of daylight between them and some of the chasing pack for the playoffs. Some daylight has already started to open up between Reading and some of the teams below them, and Stockport are kind of the one that are really hanging around. Put them to the sword as well. Yeah, I would say this is this game. Winning this game could really change the complexion of what the rest of the season looks like, because then you've got 21 games left, with a possibly 5 or 6 point cushion in the playoffs. Yeah, the rest of it really changes the rest of the season. So yeah, I think this would be a huge one. And again, like we said before, just nice to be involved in games like this. But I also did not expect Stockport to be up there. I think I had Stockport potentially getting relegated this season. So shows you what I know.
They've had Louis Barry, who's really propelled them, being on loan from Aston Villa. Even the casual fans of the league would have heard his name. I think he's top scorer actually in the league. 15 goals, 14, something like that. They've got obviously Oliver Norwood, who has featured. He's featured a lot this season, almost never present. He's 22 matches in League One out of the 25 he's played. Hasn't scored any, which is interesting. But
that wasn't really his thing, though. Was it? He was more of he stayed quite far back, as I remember, Norwood.
True. Fun fact about Oliver Norwood, he shares my birthday.
There you go.
And it is my birthday because I was born 6 years, would you believe, before him. It's disgusting, isn't it?
He put us
6 years younger than I am. Vomit.
Well, that's okay. They put us to the sword last time we played them as well. I remember Chem Campbell scored, but we were pretty much dead and buried by the end of the first half in that game. So hoping for a better result than that.
I mean, they're a pretty tight unit, really. They haven't, that they spent money. Yeah, I mean, everyone spent money compared to us. Of course they have, but they've managed to pull off some good players, really, in terms of getting them through the door. As we said, Oliver Norwood, Louis Barry signed on loan for them for a bit. There are some decent players. You've got Nick Powell, who was still knocking around and playing for them. So there's a number of players there that could do damage. Don't say win the game. What is the key to us doing well out of this fixture? Like, who are we looking for from our point of view that really need to be on their game to be able to get a positive result from the Stockport game?
So again, kind of the theme of this pod, I think, that who gets chosen at what I'm going to call the extremities of the formation, the wingers and the fullbacks, is going to be really important with this one. Stockport are a team that play with a back three, and we've spoken a few times this season about issues that Reading have playing, especially moving the ball through the half spaces against back threes. So with this, they're really going to need their fullback to be able to push up and help out. So maybe we see Garcia return at left back to kind of help out with that sort of thing. Or maybe we see Abrefa go back to right back, rather than that sort of right winger spot. Kind of interesting to see if Michael Craig comes back too, because obviously that could change things. But in any case, it means, if you're playing a back three, you're going to end up with when you're trying to progress the ball through like one of the winger spaces, obviously in the half space on the left or the right-hand side, you're going to run into the right or left-sided centre back. You're going to run into the wing back. You're going to run into, the centre mid and possibly the winger as well. So a lot of people to move the ball through. And so I think that the structure around the wingers and the fullbacks is going to be really important in this one. But if Chem Campbell has a good game, they struggled against him. I think he was really the only player who had a decent game when we lost 4-1 to them earlier in the year. So if Chem Campbell has another good game, could really, just sort of unsteady them. And I do think we have enough to beat them. Obviously, lost 4-1 last time, makes it look pretty bad. But we were competing with them okay for half an hour and just kind of have one of those times where, things really start going wrong for 15 minutes, as has happened a few times in the last few years for Reading. So, yeah, hoping for a win.
I mean, fitness permitting and not permitting, obviously, Campbell and Smith are the first two in that forward line, if you like.
Yeah.
Who else do you stick in there?
For me, there's a clear one. I think, Kamara is maybe close, and certainly Noel may go with Kamara. But for me, it's Garcia. I would play Garcia there. I think he's the only player that Reading have who can, stand up his defender and then go around him. Basically in a wing position. Other than Chem Campbell, but I think that out of the other options that we have, Kamara's just not fast enough. Akande doesn't really have the foot skills yet. The ball bounces off him a little bit too much. So for me, Garcia would be the player that I would play at left wing.
Do you think he would be able to retain the ball a bit more in that position?
Yeah, and I think that when you've got a player like that whose on the ball skills are so useful to the team and how they want to go forward, you take them and you put them further up the field rather than, putting them in a position whereby they've got a lot of responsibilities and then, a few times a game they get to do things that they're good at. I just think put players in positions where their skills, have room to shine, basically. Give Garcia a little bit less defensive responsibility. And yeah, I do think that out of all of the wingers that we've seen, he is better at retaining possession, than pretty much all of them.
Well, look, I mean, it's a really, really big game. I don't think it can be underestimated. It sounds ridiculous to say that in mid-Jan, but when you in
a game against Stockport, this is what I expected at the start of the season, a massive January fixture against Stockport to decide the rest of the year.
It's one of those where you just you look at the league positions, as we said, and you look at the distance we could put between us and them, and actually it's a huge game. And if you haven't got tickets yet, I'm not acting on behalf of the club, but if you can get down there, it'd be great. It'd be really, really great to see a slightly larger crowd than we've had in previous games. And I'm really excited about it. And as you said, Ross, earlier, how good is it to be part of a game that's exciting for once and not just run of the mill? And I just hope we can get a result out of it, because then that would really start to kick in. It will be a really big result in the context of our season. So hopefully, when we come on the pod this time next week, we'll be talking about, at least a point, if not more than that, against, Dave Challoner's side. So
yeah.
We'll see how it pans out.
Last thing I'll say about it, it reminds me a lot of that game that we played against Barnsley that had Lucas Schwal's miss.
Oh God, the miss.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of that, whereby it's, like two teams having a game that is really important for the rest of the season, but also two teams that are like, how have we ended up here then? What's going on here?
One of those, the Spider-Man meme where they're just pointing to each other.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hang on a minute. And now it's us and Barnsley down here in the playoffs in League One. What a surprise.
And we never recovered from that game. We never recovered. That squad never recovered. Pauno never recovered. Nothing. And it's quite incredible, really, how that crumble, started to crumble, basically. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So a huge game this weekend. Yeah, like you said.
Large game.
Massive.
Large. Ross, really good to see you, mate. Really, really nice to hang out
Glad
with
you're feeling better. Good to hang out.
Thanks. We appreciate that. Shall we try and get a guest on next week? Should get another one on?
Well, maybe. We'll see. We're getting we're spoiling the listeners. But yeah, we can
it's nice to get different voices, isn't it? It's nice sometimes.
Yeah, it's true.
Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it. Bits and bobs in there for you to get your teeth into, hopefully. We'll be back next week with episode 404. It might be myself and Ross. It might be myself and Ross and another. But we'll keep you posted on that. Have a really, really good week. Stay warm. Keep drinking your black and white coffee. And we will see you next week. Come on, you arts.